that, we'll move to our next speaker, Prasad Ghangal. He would be walking us today on monitoring and debugging a Kubernetes application with BotKube. A quick introduction about Prasad. Prasad is a software engineer and InfraCloud at InfraCloud Technologies and an open source contributor. He works basically on Golang, Kubernetes, CKA, and BotKube.io. He loves competitive programming and is a very quick learner. So with this quick introduction, I would like to hand over to Prasad. Prasad, can you hear me?
Yes, Aida.
Yeah.
Thanks for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay. Moment. Okay. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for joining the session. My name is Prasad, and I'll be demoing how BotKube helps you monitoring and debugging your Kubernetes application. So short intro about me. As you know, my name is Prasad. I work for InfraCloud Technologies. My interest lies in Kubernetes, Go, and working on open source projects. I'm the creator and maintainer of open source projects like BotKube and Camel2Go. So yeah, today I'll be talking about how BotKube helps in managing your Kubernetes application. So this is the brief agenda about my talk. We'll first discuss about what is BotKube and what are its functions. Then we'll dive into some use cases and see in real life, in real use cases, how BotKube actually helps us. Okay, so introduction to BotKube. What is BotKube? Before that, I hope everybody knows what is Kubernetes. If you don't know, so let me just summarize in a few sentences. Kubernetes is a container orchestrator for which manages your container lifecycle. It is even often termed as OS for containers, which manages storage, networking of the containers. And yeah, being container orchestrator, this is the Kubernetes used to deploy your application on in production environment also. So yeah, what is actually BotKube? BotKube is a bot for your Kubernetes cluster. BotKube allows you to do collaborative monitoring and debugging for your Kubernetes application. So the way BotKube works is you first install BotKube app in your messaging platforms like Slack, Mattermost, Elasticsearch. You don't need app for Elasticsearch. And for the BotKube app, you also need to deploy backend on your Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So what BotKube does is BotKube monitors the Kubernetes application events and notifies you real time if there are any failure occurred or if there are, if an application gets deleted or something like that. So it will notify you about the Kubernetes lifecycle events directly to your messaging platform you use in your day-to-day work, like Slack and Mattermost. And this really allow us to, to manage your Kubernetes applications right from the messaging platform you use in your work, for example, Slack. So yeah, so monitoring is one thing. Another interesting feature of BotKube is it is not like one-way communication medium. You can also request BotKube to execute some commands on your Kubernetes cluster and get the response back. Obviously, this is configurable, what commands you want to allow for users to execute. As default, when you deploy BotKube backend on your Kubernetes cluster, it will only allow read-only access to the users. So if someone wants to, get logs of some pod, they'll be able to do it by executing some BotKube command. And the format of BotKube commands is same as kubectl command. For example, if I want logs of certain pod, I'll just use BotKube logs pod name -n namespace, which is same as kubectl command that we use to talk to Kubernetes cluster. So you don't have to actually learn new syntax if you want to, use BotKube. So yeah, and again, this is completely configurable. One more thing I forgot to discuss about in the last slide. As you can see, you need to deploy backend for your app in your own cluster. So there is no middleman which intercepts the communication. So the backend we install in your Kubernetes cluster talks directly to your client, let it be Slack app or Mattermost integration. So yeah, you don't have to worry about the privacy and security concerns. Right. So as of now, BotKube supports multiple targets. So there are two types of targets mainly. One is we can divide it into bi-directional targets and sync. Sync is like where BotKube just push the notification, and they will just store the notifications like Elasticsearch or Webhook. In bi-directional targets, you can treat it as bot, where BotKube will send notification, which is one direction, as well as you can request BotKube to execute some command. So this is like two-way communication happening. For bi-directional targets, you need to actually install apps on specific targets. So we have official BotKube app on Slack Marketplace to install into Slack. And similarly, you can create BotKube integration on Mattermost. And there are a few targets which are in pipeline, will be released in upcoming releases for support for Teams, Discord, and Telegram targets. All right, so yeah, as I talked about, BotKube will monitor your Kubernetes application lifecycle, your Kubernetes application error events, and if any event occurs, it will send notification to the targeted communication medium. So for now, we'll just target. So I'll just talk in context of Slack, but same applies with other targets as well. So when any Kubernetes event occurs, BotKube will capture that. It will. So BotKube has something like filters, which BotKube runs. So once BotKube gets an event, Kubernetes event, BotKube backend runs a series of filters, which does some checks on the event and adds some information along with the event. So yeah, so filter engine is responsible to run all the filters in sequence. And if you want to, add your own checks based on your policy, you can register filter to filter engine. And in that filter, you can write logic to perform some checks on the Kubernetes event and add additional messages. Like, for example, the sample filter. So BotKube has some built-in filters. The simplest example would be image tag checker. So we have written a filter which, whenever the create event occurs, somebody creates deployment, the filter will parse the specs for the deployment and checks for the container image tag being used. And if it is a latest image tag, the filter will add an additional warning or recommendation, like the latest tag is not recommended. This is not a best practice. So yeah, likewise, based on your policy, you can write your own filter and register that filter into filter engine so that you can run some checks based on your policy. Obviously, for now, the filter can be written only in Go language, but we are exploring how we can make it generic or use something like OPA to write filters. Yeah, so BotKube is open source project which is hosted on InfraCloud BotKube repo. You can just go there. If you have any feature requests, just free to create any issue. Feel free to send pull requests. We'll be happy to review and merge it. All right, so let's talk about few use cases. So in typical software development lifecycle, when you have developed one application and deploy it in staging or production cluster, the next critical thing you have to address is monitoring and checking health of the system or the application. These are often considered as day two operations. So yeah, as I said, BotKube helps you to address that. It will monitor your application and notifies you in real time as soon as an event occurs on your messaging platforms like Slack or Mattermost used in your day-to-day work. And if you look at the configuration, so BotKube has very fine-grained configuration through which you can configure and make BotKube notify you about only the resources you are interested in. So this is the typical format of resource configuration. So obviously you need to specify which resource you want to monitor. You can filter namespaces so that you can get notification about events in particular namespace only. You can configure event types. So supported event types are create, update, delete, and error. If you just specify all here, it will monitor all the events, create, update, delete, and error. For update events, you can add additional information, like if you want to include diff, if you want to get notification about updates in specific field. For example, I want to get notification if I want to get additional info with the update notification about with changes in container image field. So I'll just use JSON path syntax here to specify the field I want to get included in the diff, which will be sent along with the update notification. So yeah, like this, BotKube can be configured to get to get notification about only the resources you are interested in, even only about the fields you are interested in. Okay, so yeah, once you deployed your application in production cluster, for example, if there is an error occurred in that application, so next thing as a SRE engineer or the teams who is responsible for monitoring that application, if the failure occurs, the next action item would be to escalate that issue to respective feature owners. So as an teams, I'll transfer that issue to respective teams to take a look at the failure and try to fix that. So as a feature owner, one may want to do some checks, like they want to check what is the manifest being used, what is the deployment spec, if the service is exposed to correct code, like that. They also might want to check logs of the pod, right? So yeah, as a developer or the feature owner, I might want to do some sanity checks. I might do some check few things like configuration and log. So to do that, I'll need access to that Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so as a cluster admin, one has to create a service account with restrictive access, so that the teams will be the teams can execute some commands and not the destructive commands like delete and which will critical commands. So as a cluster admin, one has to create a service account with restrictive access, like read-only access for that instance, and distribute once he or she or they creates the kubeconfig file. They have to distribute the kubeconfig file to feature owner team. So this is like a very overhead and complicated task, I would say. So creating service account with restrictive access and distribute those to across all the teams who is responsible for this feature is like, it takes a lot of time. So instead of that, if you use just BotKube, we can create one channel on Slack. We can just add BotKube there, and all the members who wants to debug that application, and then they can collaboratively execute BotKube commands to get the required info, like for logs and checking status of pod and all those things. So they can just execute BotKube commands and get the info they want right through the Slack window. They don't need to have kubeconfig file, and that reduces overhead of cluster admin to create the kubeconfig file and distribute those. Yeah, this is how feature owners can do collaborative debugging right from the Slack window, Slack channel, I would say. So BotKube also provides setting to map clusters into specific Slack channel or Mattermost channel. So yeah, we can configure BotKube to send events from multiple cluster into specific Slack channel, so that Slack will have single place, single channel where you get all the events about the cluster health or application health, and from the same channel they can talk to the Kubernetes cluster to get more insights of those. This is one use case. You might want to separate the teams or the feature owners. For example, if I have dev cluster and production cluster, I might want to send notification of events occurring on dev cluster into one channel, for example, dev channel, and events occurring in production cluster should goes into prod channel. So this kind of mapping is also possible, which will isolate the application, isolate the access as well as the notifications. This is the alpha feature we are working on. We are trying to make it more granular so that BotKube can map specific namespace to specific channel with different level of access. For example, in admin, you can have admin channel through which you can use the write commands also. For example, delete or create pods. And in one channel, you can just execute read-only command. For example, get pods and get log, only those type of commands. So this is alpha feature, which is on develop, but not released yet. Okay, so enough, we have talked enough. So as Legend has said, talk is cheap, show me the code. So let's try to go into the demo and see how BotKube actually works. To give you context, I have one Slack workspace called Prasad G, and as you can see, I have configured. So I have two clusters. One is dev cluster and staging cluster, and I have configured BotKube to send events occurring in dev cluster should go in a dev alert channel, and event occurring on staging cluster should go into staging STG alerts channel. All right. So as I said, you can use single BotKube app to talk to multiple clusters. So what I'll do, I'll just try to check health of the backend. So as you can see, when I executed BotKube ping, I got response from backend in COP staging and one from GK staging. So these are two clusters to which I can talk to through BotKube app. If you are confused what commands BotKube supports, you can always execute /BotKube health command, which will just show you the health BotKube health. So there are two types of commands BotKube supports. One is BotKube command, and another one is other set is kubectl command. So BotKube commands are to manage notification. For example, if you want to turn off notifications in this particular channel, you can execute BotKube BotKube notifier stop. If you want to check status, you can just execute BotKube notifier status. You can disable or enable features. So these are like notification related settings, and you can execute this group of commands only from the configured cluster or configured channel. Second set is kubectl commands. So you can execute any kubectl commands. For example, BotKube get pod. So this is same as kubectl command. You just have to change the kubectl prefix with BotKube prefix. And BotKube won't know on which cluster you want to execute these commands. So you need to give cluster name, and the cluster name we can know it by executing BotKube ping. So if I want to execute get pod command on corps STG, I'll just add cluster name there, and that will give me a response. Currently there are no pods. All right, so yeah, so now let's go through the scenario where someone deploys an application on a Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I've created one application, MySQL, in MySQL namespace. So as soon as I created that application, so I have configured BotKube to send notification about all the resources and about all the events. So that's why when I created the resources, I got resource create notification. And as you can see, the deployment is failing. So as an SRE or as a team who is responsible to monitor these errors, I might want to escalate this issue to respective feature runners. So I'll just forward this message and ask people to take a look. Now, as a feature runner, I might want to list pods. List pods in MySQL namespace. Okay, because the failure has occurred in the pod. Okay, I can see there is an issue with the image tag. I'll just check what is the image tag. Let me just copy this out. Yeah, I might want to describe this to just know the pod, the image tag being used. So looks like the image tag which is being used is not correct. Okay, so now as I know the issue, I can either go to the I can go to the terminal and fix that, or since I have configured BotKube to allow write commands also, I can just set the correct image tag using again BotKube command. So correct image tag is for now I'm just using the latest one. Yeah. So as you can see the status now, the available replicas are changed from 0 to 1. And interestingly, if you look at the pod created notification, you can see the recommendation being added, like the latest tag used in this image or this container should be ordered. And this happened due to the filters. So yeah, you can just list the filters. So these are like default set of filters BotKube supports. You can add your own checker, your own filter. The documentation is there on botkube.io site. So yeah, you can turn off any filter as I showed you in the BotKube help. All right. So yeah, when you deploy your BotKube backend, BotKube default provides only read-only access, and if you want to provide more, if you want to provide write access also, like if you want to allow specific command that is configurable, you can configure the verbs you want to use, the kubectl verbs you want to use, the kubectl resources you want to allow for kubectl command. That is all configurable. So yeah, this is how BotKube helps you in monitoring the application health, as well as it also helps you in collaborative debugging. So you don't have to you don't have to create kubeconfig and distribute those with to the teams if you want to give access to them. Yeah, this covers our demo. So in the upcoming release, we have a few interesting features. We have added the support for audit events. So it provides us very granular level of notifications. So as soon as somebody, for example, as soon as somebody tries to execute kubectl exec command, this is more restrictive. I would say like security concern, you can say. So BotKube can notify you about that. We are also adding support for Microsoft Teams in upcoming release, and there are already PRs raised for Telegram and Discord support. So in upcoming release, you'll be also able to watch custom resource help, a custom resource event. So this is something interesting. Well, we are also trying to add more filters like cube scan and all. So yeah, this is the upcoming release has some interesting features in pipeline. For documentation, you can refer BotKube.io, and the code is there on BotKube repo. Feel free to raise and feature request or issue if you observe. You can join BotKube Slack workspace on join.botkube.io. Yeah, that covers my talk. Thanks for joining. If you have any question, I can address that. Do we have any question on YouTube?
Thanks, Prashant. We just have only one question. It's just a general question. Like by default, BotKube has read-only services, right? So can we customize this?
Yeah. As I said, as I said, while deploying BotKube backend, you can configure that what type of command you want to allow. By default, it allows only read-only commands like get pods and get logs. But if you want more commands to be supported, you can configure that anyways in BotKube configuration. The configuration is you can see full configuration on botkube.io site. Let me just point to that. So in this section, we have explained every configuration supported. All right, so give it a try. If you have any questions, feel free to join Slack and we can discuss there.
Okay, thank you, Prasad, for